So I had this brilliant idea that I was going to do a video on canning, and because I'd watched so many videos on canning when I wanted to start canning, and I had to watch so many people like take me through the entire process, and it took like a 2-hour videos. I was going to do it super fast, so I tried to make it, and it ended up it looked like me just talking fast rather than me going any faster. So I'm going to try and do this again because I'm at the point where I'm ready to start the canning process, but I'm going to try and do this all again. And so this is take 2. So anyway, what I'm doing is I'm canning beans, and I'm canning beans because at the start of the pandemic I got a lot of dry beans, and then I just can them, and use them as needed. I actually can about twice a week, 16 cans of beans. But what I needed to do is find a way to make it economical, because you can buy beans for almost nothing. Like these are all, everything's organic, but organic beans are even, $1.50 a can. So what I did is I bought these Tattler lids, and I don't know, I'm just have my phone on the top of my fridge right now, so I don't know if I have this in focus or anything, but basically they're a reusable lid. They have this ring. You can reuse the lid. I've seen either 10 times or 10 years. I've used them over 10 times already. But you just got to get the lid, the seal all the way down beforehand, and then you can reuse them, which is great for me. But there's a lot of like little quirks with these lids. They're not as easy as other lids. You have to do it in a correct manner, and I've been getting better and better at it and having less and less failures. So anyway, I'm going to try and take you through the process. I'm going to try and cut you through the process so you're not just watching water boil, which is half of canning. Even my fastest canning is like 2.5 hours of work. Most of it is just staring at the pressure canner. So anyway, here's the Tattler lids I'll be using. Here's the pressure canner I'm using. I'm warming up the jars in the pressure canner. There's these separators things that you have to use. You need 2 of them for what I'm doing, because I'm going to be doing 16 pint size. And then you fill the water up. There's a line, there's a marker on this that tells you where to fill the water to. It's the bottom marker. In my case, because I've done it so many times, that it's just stained right into the side of the canner. I also have all the lids over here boiling, or it's just starting to boil, getting in boiling water. And I'll put that one too. I do set them up so they're already pre-set up, because they're a bit of a pain because you're working with them hot and with one of these tools. So these are the tools you'll need. You can buy a pack like I did. Sorry, this is getting to be a mess, but I just bought this pack off of Amazon. It had all the tools in them. This is for picking up the cans, obviously. This is for putting things in the jars. This is for picking up lids. This is for getting the air bubbles out, and this one here is for, it's a magnet for the metal lids, which we're not going to actually use. But you can get all those in a set. So what I do is I pre-set up the beans. So I'm doing 3 kinds of beans: garbanzo beans, black beans, and pinto beans. You can also do, basically any other kind of red bean, any other kind of dry beans, red beans, Great Northern beans, things like that. So anyway, this recipe I got off of Google. It's really, I got off of somebody who Google used it, but it's a very simple recipe. It's the recipe itself is 1/2 cup of beans, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and boiling water, which in my case I heat up in the this little hot pot ahead of time. And that's like the hardest part of the thing, is just keeping up with the boiling water. So because this will fill like 4 jars, but I'm doing 16 jars, so I've got to fill it and keep it going. So that's the biggest part of the process for me. So I have my first 8 jars in there with the water. I used to have a second thing over here where I was boiling them, just getting them hot enough so they don't crack when you pour boiling water into them. I used to have a second thing, and then I stopped because I just kind of set these aside and then move these in as I do it, and it's pretty easy to work with. Sorry, my coffee is, I'm a bit of a mess right now, but anyway. So that's sort of the process. I've got the lids are boiling here, the jars are warming up here, and the extra jars are over here. I've got my second level for when we do the second level here, and then all my tools here. These are my the beans I'm using. This is black beans, this is garbanzo beans, and pinto beans. I had this. I actually put them in these little because it's much easier to work with. But anyway, you can see down there, that's garbanzo beans. That's sort of my initial setup. So from here on out, I'm just going to take you through what I do. I guess I could just start right here, because the first thing I do is get everything going. My hot water is to the right line. These are hot now, so when I put boiling water in them, they won't break. My lids are boiling, and or almost boiling. They're getting there. It's on full, but it's. So anyway, as this process, my daughter right in the middle of this is like, I want pancakes, so now I'm sort of waiting for this to cool at the same time. So anyway, this is hot for the first round, and I'm gonna get going. I'm just gonna kind of do it. What I do, let me just see if this is gonna, that should be fine. So what I do is very simply, sorry for the video, I'm not a videographer, I'm just doing this. I mean, I normally do like 4 of these at a time. I turn this over, right? And I do a number at a time, but I'm gonna do it slowly. I put in my thing so that I don't spill. I grab a thing of beans, and because I washed the beans in advance, which I forgot to show you, beans I wash in a colander, and then pour them in here. So these have all been washed and checked ahead of time. So I put that first one in, and then I can go into the ready to be washed. So the beans are in there. Next, I just put in a half a teaspoon of salt. So here we are with the salt, and you notice it's canning salt. You can use any brand you like, but the canning salt, I believe, doesn't have iodine, however you pronounce it. I do a half a teaspoon, put it in, make sure to use this thing so it doesn't get on the rim, because the rim of the container needs to be clean so that the lid sticks to it properly. So at this point, I take my thing of boiling water here, I pour it, and I go right there. You can see that there's there's a little ridge a little lower, and I do it to right about there, or just below there. At this point, the next tool I need is, I can pick it up because it's not easy to pick up off the counter, is this to get the bubbles out, and you just kind of stir around, get those bubbles out. So now this one's ready. All it needs is a lid, and with that, I grab my lid picking up tool. I try to get one of these that's already ready. Put that lid on, go down to my drawer of rings, get the nicest looking one. I'm gonna need 16 of them, so by the end I will have used all of them. And I put this on. Now with this, I don't know if I can do this. You wanna just do it like finger tight, so almost like just as tight as to where it spins. I normally, I pop a finger on it and just do it, and then just set it aside. You just want it a little bit tight. It's gonna need to bubble. This is the Tattler lid stuff. It needs to bubble out during the process, and you don't do your final real tightening until after it's out and finished canning. So this is pretty loose right now. It's just tight enough where it doesn't wanna, where it spins the jar. I don't go crank it down because it needs to actually bubble out with this Tattler stuff. So that's one of the big things. That's a Tattler thing. And it's what I've been doing, and so it's what I'm used to at this point. And that's how you have more success with them actually canning. So yeah, I put the lid on. I have the lids already made up in here because it makes it a lot easier to get on, and then I put the ring on. So what I do at this point is I take one of these, I put it in, and now I have that one in the center is brand new, and all the other ones I know are hot. So what I do is I do like 4 at a time. And this is just a slower speed of what I'm doing. I take a half a teaspoon of salt, pop it in there, do all 3. It's really hard to do this with a phone in your hand. So all the salt's in. Then I come over here, grab my beans. This is pintos. pintos. Make sure you move the little funnel there. And black beans. Right, and then again, I'm waiting on this pot because that's what I spend most of the time before I get the lid on, waiting on the pot. While I'm here though, what I want to show you is there's an arrow on the side. I always put it on the right hand side because I've got my lid set up with the pressure gauge. So there's arrows on the container itself. You line this arrow up and then tighten it, and then I want my pressure gauge in front right here, and then there's the little thing you put the stopper on. Okay, so the first layer is in. What I want to do is get them separated so they're not touching each other inside of here. But you can see there's 8 in there, 7 around the sides and 1 in the center. And then for the second layer, we just pop this right on top and continue on. Okay, so now all 16 are in. There's the 2 layers. You can see that in the middle there's that little separator. All 16 are in. So at this point we're going to put the lid on. And I showed before, but just in case, here's the arrow. I put it on the right because of the way I have my lid set up. You match that arrow, doing this with my phone, you match that arrow to the arrow, of course I put it backwards, to the arrow on the container. It drops right down. Can't do this one-handed. This is not working. Anyway, close it up like that. I did it one-handed and switching off. And now it's got the lid on. So now pressure is not building up yet. So what we have to do now is wait. And the rest of this process is a lot of waiting and a little bit of moving the flame down there up and down. So I have the controller here for the flame. And you change your pressure by raising and lowering your temperature going to this. So what we do now is it's on full blast down here, and we just let it sit until this will pop up, and that'll also create a lock so you can't open this thing. Inside you can look at it if you have one of these. If you have something different, I don't know how it works. So we wait until that pops up, and then after that pops up, we got to wait another 10 minutes for steam to just pour out of this, because you want to get all the air out and have it just be steam in there. You can see there's a little bit of bubbling. And then after you put the little stopper on, here I'll show you this thing, after that goes on, after all that steam's out, so we're talking a half an hour now to this point. This goes up, I'm looking at it and pointing like you would see that. But anyway, after the steams, it's been steaming with this little pin thing popped up for 10 minutes. Then you put this cap on that, and at that point the pressure starts to rise. Now when you're actually cooking, like on this one, you see how it says 10 straight up, and right next to it is a little dot. That's 11. 11's what you need for pressure, and that's at sea level. I'm at sea level, so I can do that, but for every 1,000 feet I believe you go up one point. So 1,000 feet's 12, 2,000 feet's 13, etc. So you get a feel for what the process of canning is like. There was that big rush that I just did, and since then I've done all the dishes, I've made myself coffee, cleaned up all the beans and everything, and I'm still waiting for that thing to just pop up, and that's the start of the process. This is a hour-and-a-half can, so once it's at pressure, it's an hour and a half, and then it takes another half an hour to cool down. You can see what it's really like. So you see the time now. I mean, I started over an hour ago doing this, but anyway, just to get you a sense of how long canning really takes. So the little pin lock thing just popped up a second ago. So now we wait 10 more minutes. The steam will get, like right now there's a lot of air coming out. It'll get very like steam, like watery in that 10 minutes. But if you just wait 10 minutes, And then at that point, we put on the little stopper here, and we start watching the pressure. From that point on, you kind of have to be really aware of the what's going on with it. So I am like an hour and a half to 2 hours into canning right now, and right at this minute, I am just, let this focus, autofocus. At this minute, I am just hitting, see where it's on the mark? So you can see at this moment, I'm about an hour and a half to 2 hours in, and I have an hour and a half of maintaining this above that mark, and right on the mark is where you're supposed to be, but it's really hard to, at least I've found, to keep it right on the mark. So I just try to keep it over and, you know, between 11 and 13. So anyway, at this point, you know, this is where I start my canning. It's an hour and a half can. So let's see, 10 to 2, so 20, so 18 minutes after 2 is the official end of my canning at this point. So with this kind of canner, I don't know about other canners, I don't know anything about them. The way you control, see it's going up above 11, the way you control the temperature, the pressure is by the heat. So I turn down the heat somewhere around there, and then especially right in the beginning, you just really keep your eye on this. Eventually it'll get to a point where I'm just making tiny adjustments, but I mean I have a trick because I'm also like the only one watching my daughter right now, and so I'm called away a lot, so I always set a timer for like 5 minutes, so I'm never away from this thing for more than 5 minutes, because even if I get distracted with my daughter, I hear the timer and I'm like, oh, I gotta go, and I'll be right back, and I run and do it, and then whenever I walk away from this thing, I set a timer for 5 minutes, so that I'm never away for more than 5 minutes. So you can see it's kind of like, just with me turning it down to there, it's kind of stopped. It's just about 12. I'm personally not gonna, you know, I can, and as long as it's above 11 and under 14, I'm pretty happy. Once it gets to 15, it seems to like this is the emergency pressure release here, which blows off if it gets too pressure, and then you've really messed up. So just shut it off at that point. But anyway, you know, so I get concerned when it hits 15. So I try to keep it somewhere between 11 and 13, and then if it's at 14, I'm like turning it way down and letting it have a little bit of a cool time. So anyway, yeah. So at this point, I'm just watching it for the next hour and a half, and you know, every 5 minutes I set a timer. There's like not much of this process that you really, this is where it gets just boring. So yeah, just imagine the next hour and a half of me checking that thing. If the pressure goes too low, I turn it up a bit. If the pressure goes too high, I turn it down a bit. And I try to like have it so I'm just making minute adjustments every time, and not like big sweeping like quarter turns or things like that where I'm only making like a 1% change. So yeah, that's how I do it, and we'll go like this all the way until the time runs out. I think I said 2:18. At 2:18, all I do is I shut it off. I mean, I'll come back at 2:18 and be there, but I just shut it off, let it cool. That's another half an hour wait. You wait all the way until this thing, now it's super hot, so I don't want to accidentally touch something, until this thing drops on its own. That's how this type of canning works. They have different names for a canning where you let it cool by itself, which is what I just described, or there's other methods. I don't even know if I could. This canner, you kind of have to wait, because you can't, when that thing's up, it automatically locks the lid, so you can't actually turn this lid right now and open the canner. You'd have to just do something stupid, like pull that thing off, and I mean, it would just be stupid, and you're not just dealing with, like, because it's under pressure, you're not just dealing with 212, you know, boiling, you're dealing with like 265 because it's pressurized. So it's much hotter than normal, so just, you know, don't mess around with that kind of thing. It's not worth it. Getting burned is terrible. I've done it myself too many times. But it went up a little bit. It's actually coming down. I just turned it down just a fraction. Just wanted to show you that that's how you control it. See, it's a little high, but now it was at 13, but now it's at 12 and a half, so I know it's dropping a bit. So now I know I can, if I need to, I can walk away for a couple minutes and check. But again, set a timer if you ever walk away from this thing, because look, I'm only 10 minutes into this, and it's got a long way to go. Okay, here we are. It's slightly past the time. I've been dealing with my daughter's things. We're still at temperature, but we've hit our hour-and-a-half mark, which is the time. And so all I do now is I turn it off, fully off. So now we just wait for it to cool down, and that's yet another half an hour or so before it cools down. And then after it cools down, this will drop. So we wait for that to happen on its own. And it goes all the way to 0 and then takes a while still to drop. And then after that happens, we can take off this thing and don't burn yourself. And we can, once we do that, we can take the lid off and move it over. I just put it on a towel because it needs to sit for a long time. So you can see at this point, we're down to 0 on the pressure, but the little stopper's still up. So you gotta wait. Even now, I think I got about 5 more minutes to go until it's ready. But once it's down, you just take this off, and then you can remove all the jars. Put them over. I put them on a towel. You have tile, which can handle the heat. So I know there's not much. You don't see very much, but that's what I got. So anyway, it finally fell right there. So I just popped the stopper off, if I can get it. And now the pressure is fully off, so you can release it. When you lift this, don't, steam's gonna come up, so don't do it in your face. Do it away from you. So now all the jars are here. I normally just pop them over on the counter. I dump the stuff off the top. It says let them sit for like 3 or 4 minutes before you tighten them. So I just set them over there and then let them sit for a few minutes, and then I tighten them. That's how you do it with the Tattler lids. You tighten them after this, but they want to actually have steam come out the sides there, so they don't want them fully tight until this point. So now I have all my jars over here. So the next step is going to be to tighten them. It says let them sit for like a couple minutes. We're gonna do this about a minute now. So we give it just a minute, but you see it's gonna sit there and boil away for a while now. So all of these will be perfect when they're done. Done this many times, and even though they're all different types of beans, they all work great. And I can reuse everything over again, so there's no real cost to me other than the gas to do this and the time and energy I expend doing it. But to tighten these lids, so now I'm dealing with things that are super hot. So let's see if I can get this in a way that it's gonna see. Okay, so what I need to do though to tighten these, let's start with this one I brought out first. So these are super hot and will burn you. So I work with gloves and stuff and doing my absolute best to tighten it now. And then after a while, when it's cool enough that I can sort of get a better grip, I normally tighten them a second time. But right now they're so hot that I can't touch them without gloves. So at this point, this is what I do. I'm gonna do all of them. Then I wait a while, I do it once more when it's cool enough that I can do it with like just a little bit of pain without real burning myself. And then I just wait them out until they cool down, and then we check them out whether they sealed. I just remove the rings at that point, and we see how many we get. So it's been another 20 minutes or so. So now I tighten them a second time. At this point, I just grab it and as tight as I can get it. You know, because I go quick, I don't really burn myself. It's hot, but that's how you do it. So it is hot. It's very hot. It does burn a bit. Anyway, you got the point of what I'm doing. This is what I do, and then I just let it sit and cool off, and then when it's cool, it says wait overnight, but I'm sure nothing's really happening after it cools down, so when it's cool, you can see it's still boiling in there. When it cools down, I just take the rings off and see whether the seal held. Okay, so I moved everything out to the garage, so here's the reveal to see how well it all worked with the reusable lids. So this is another little tool that came in that package that I forgot about earlier, just to help get the lids off. You pop them like this because you really crank them down to get them on there. You just kind of go around till you find a good spot, and eventually so for these, so how difficult that was to get off. They really stick on there. So, I mean, the main thing is to don't just lift them by this because you may spill it, but you can see this lid's not coming off. I'm pulling pretty hard. So yeah, I have 15 more to go. Let's see how many successes and failures I have. That's a little easier. Good. Good. Okay, so that's 16 of them. I had 100% success. It took me a while to get that good with the Tattler lids where I'm getting 100% success, and I don't always get 100% success. I sometimes have one or two bad ones. They're a little harder to work with. You do need to do them just finger tight, do the whole process, and after they sit for a minute or two, then tighten them down. I tighten them using something to protect my hands because they're boiling at that point. And then when I can touch them, I go in again and do it by hand because I seem to get a better grip on it by hand when it's not too hot for me to touch it. So that's it. And the Tattler lids, the other ones do a little pop down and you can hear them pop or stuff. Tattler doesn't do that. You got to kind of pull, I pull one of the edges. It's a really tight seal, so I pull one of the edges and I'm not trying to open it, but I'm pulling pretty hard and just to make sure, and then holding it because when they pop off, the bottom drops off. So anyway, that's it. That's how to can with, canning is just the same, but with Tattler lids. So thank you very much. Hope this works for you. If you do watch this, because as of right now, I've had no watches of any of my videos. But if somebody does watch this and it helps them, or if there's things I missed, I can always redo this. I do this every couple of weeks, so if there's something I missed, I may update it. So leave notes down in the comments, and I'll review it once in a while and see about upgrading this video if it's being watched. All right, thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye. I hope this video has been helpful to you. It's helped, especially if you're using Tattler lids, some little tips that work for me. Just, I read them off the box and then try to work them in, and they've been working for me over the past few months. One thing about the like and subscribe thing down the bottom, please don't hit it. I'm just making these videos for fun and things that I think are important. I'm not trying to build a channel or anything, so do me a favor and don't hit the like and don't hit the subscribe, because this is for me for fun, and if you watched it, you're probably one of the 10 people who watched it. So thank you very much, and you have a wonderful day.